What is going on, YouTube? Last night on my Instagram, right here, I teased the Triforce spinner that I had been designing. I'm really excited for the Nintendo Switch and Breath of the Wild coming out next week, so let's go ahead and get right into it. So like I said, we're going to be taking a look at the Triforce spinner that I teased last night on my Instagram. So I'm going to show you guys how we design this in Fusion 360. We'll go ahead and export the files, we'll import them into Simplify 3D, and I'll show you how, I'll show you which settings I'm using in Simplify 3D for this specific model. And then I will show you guys how we assemble it after we print the final colors back here on the Robo 3D. So let's go ahead and jump to computer, we'll jump into Fusion 360 and we'll get right to it. It's so much fun. Alright, so here we are in Fusion 360. Now I'm not going to design it all over again. I'll actually just show you guys the steps that I went through. I'm by no means a well-versed in Fusion 360. I'm actually still quite a novice, but I was able to get this design to work and it actually turned out pretty good. So first thing we did was create our sketch here. This large triangle, these are 80 millimeters with 60 degrees to make it a equilateral triangle. And then we went ahead and put the smaller triangles inside to make our Triforce. From there, I extruded and actually printed this model right here. And this was just to make sure that the bearing fit. This hole here in the center for the bearing was actually cut out at 22.2 millimeters, making enough room for the bearing, but it was actually still pretty tight. Next, what I did is I started to sketch out the cap, which is this guy right here, and this is what you actually hold with your finger. This sits inside the bearing it has a little lip on it so that you're not gripping the bearing, and the bearing is allowed to spin freely. So we've got a 8 millimeter post here, the small lip, which I believe is a millimeter, and then this outer diameter is 22 millimeters, so it's the exact diameter of the bearing. And then from there, we went ahead and extruded the middle pin. Needed to extrude it a little further, I guess. Went ahead and chamfered the bottom. Chamfered the pin itself. And then went ahead and created that little ledge. We can go and zoom in and take a look at that. You can see we created that little lip right there. And zoom back out. So what we did next is we went ahead and created the circles to cut out for the outer bearings and printed that one out as well, pretty thin, just to make sure that the bearings all fit and that it's spun. We went ahead and extruded it upwards to make a thicker model, which is actually the same exact model that I'm using here. And this is 7 millimeters thick, which is the thickness of the 608 bearings. And then from here, let me just go ahead and hide this body. And we'll hide that first sketch. No, we don't want to hide that one. Okay, we'll leave all of those there. But actually what we did next was each one of the triangles for the Triforce, which are right here, we created in this area and put a small pin there that fits inside the inner diameter of the 608 bearing. That's what holds it in place. And what I plan on doing is just putting a small drop of glue on these 3 points here to hold that in place on the final model. So then we went through, we extruded the center pin, and then we extruded the actual triangle. I believe this triangle is 1.5 millimeters thick, and then I made the pin in the center roughly, I want to say 3.5, maybe 4.5 from the plane, which gave it about 2.5 millimeters up top. And then let me go ahead and rotate this a little bit. What we did is we went ahead and, sorry about that, we went ahead and chamfered this spot here just to make it look a little nicer. Go ahead and rotate us back out. Go ahead and put a little chamfer on the actual pin here. And then from here, I just made a few changes. I was extending the pin little by little. And right here is what I did was, let me go ahead and zoom into the little bearing holder here, the piece that you actually hold on to. And what I did was I flipped it over because I imported an SVG of the Z from Breath of the Wild Zelda. And when I imported that as an SVG so that I could then go ahead and extrude it into the little holder to give us our Z on the final model. The rest are just a few moving things around just so I can position them back where I want them. So let's go ahead and export these bodies. Now to do that, we're just going to turn off our sketches. We can export them one at a time. So say we want to export body 1, we'll right click, save as STL. By default, it typically has send to 3D print utility checked here. We'll just uncheck that because we're just going to save the STL and then print it in our own printing utility. You can hit OK, and then you can see I already have mine saved right here. The bearing cover Z, which is the piece that you hold, and then the bearing holder, which is this large triangle. So I'm just going to cancel since I have all of these saved already. And I will make all of these STLs available on Thingiverse. Just give me a few days to get them uploaded, and I will have them there, and I will provide a link in the description below. So let's go ahead and jump over to Simplify 3D, and I'll show you guys all of my settings for these, and we'll go ahead and get them printed. All right, so here we are. We're in Simplify 3D, and we have all of our models, or STLs, already placed onto our build plate. To finish this entire model, you need 6 of the tri-plates. Those would be these guys here. 1 bearing holder, and then 2 of the bearing cover Z's, which are the little pieces that we're going to hold on to when we spin this. Now let's go ahead and go into the print settings. These are pretty standard that I use for everything. The only thing that I increased was my infill percentage, and I increased that to 50%. And the only reason I did that was I wanted to give it a little bit more weight on the outside, so I made it a little heavier by increasing the infill. Everything else is pretty much standard. I've got a 0.4 nozzle. On our layer height, we've got 0.2 millimeters, 3 solid top layers, 3 solid bottom layers, 2 perimeter shells. No supports, obviously, for this. I would assume that the printer should handle, let me see if I can show you this on the camera here. You can see that little Z there. Just trying to check the camera. There we go. So you can see the little Z. Most printers should be able to handle that just fine, especially if you have cooling fans. I know on my Robo 3D, I actually have dual cooling fans, and I have no issues with that. So let's go ahead, and we did heat the bed to 55 degrees, and our extruder we're running at 205. So that's pretty much it. Like I said, I use pretty much my standard settings that I would use for everything. I just happen to bump up the infill percentage. Now, if you wanted to print these in different colors, you would obviously print this bearing holder in a separate color than the plates and the holders. So what I did, and I already have my G code created, but I went ahead and printed these 6 plates here separately. I'll be printing these in gold. And then for the holder and these 2 bearing holders, the pieces that we're actually going to hold on to, these are going to be printed in black. So I've already got the G code created for this. We'll go ahead and transfer it over to our Octoprint. I'll show you guys the time lapses right now, and then we'll go ahead and assemble it. Alright, so here are our finished models. I've already inserted 1 bearing in here just to make sure that it fit, and it does. So we've got this, we've got the black holders with the Z on them, and then we've got our gold triangles here for the Triforce. So to assemble this, all you're going to need is 4 608 bearings, guys, right here. For the center bearing, I recommend getting a higher quality bearing, something like a Bones Red or something. Fortunately, this is just a bearing that I pulled off of my Robo 3D's old extruder. So we are recycling, and we're just going to go ahead and insert the rest of the 3 bearings real quick. There we go. So we've got 2 out of the 3 remaining. Insert the last one here. There we go. Like I said, the easiest way is just set it on the table like this, and then apply force from the top so that they go in flat. Since we made it at 7mm, they sit perfectly flush all the way around. And you can see it spins much better with a little bit of weight on the end. The next thing we can do is just insert the little Z caps that we made. Insert one on each side. And since I would like them to be the same, I'm just going to pay a little bit of attention to how I'm inserting them. There we go. So we've got our Z on that side. There's Z on this side here. You can see, no matter how hard I pinch it, it doesn't pinch the actual bearing, which is why we put that little lip on the holder here. Last, we've got our 6 little plates here. And we're just going to put these into each of the 3 bearings. So you can just place it inside the bearing there. Click it down into place. That's it, just like that. We're going to go ahead and insert the remaining 5 into each of the slots or the 3 bearings. And these may move around a little bit, which is why, like I said, I'm going to take some glue. Probably a little bit of super glue. You can see there's our finished Triforce spinner. We still have the other 3 to put on the other side, but we'll do that in a second. But I'm going to take some super glue and put a dab in between the holder and the plate right here, here, and here for each triangle, just to hold them into place. That way I don't have to deal with readjusting them every single time that I spin it. So let's insert our last 3, and we'll give it a whirl. Dropped on. 1 second. Now have our finished spinner. Adjust them a little bit. This one needs to be. These are a little different. If you can see it right here, this pin is actually closer to one of the sides, and the side with the smallest distance here actually needs to go towards the grip that you hold on to. There we go. Got everything in place. There's our finished Zelda Triforce ear spinner. I said I made this. I'm really excited for the Nintendo Switch and Breath of the Wild, so I wanted to go and make something themed after that and keep me busy in the meantime. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, drop me a like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. See you guys next time.